of course, at a very crucial time for your country right now. It sounds like you were pretty surprised when you had this job and you took this job. How ready and prepared are you for these, what looks to be pretty tough negotiations with the IMF, and what is the message you're going to be taking to them?
I know it is, but we have a very good team in place. We have professional central bank governor who had extensive experience dealing with and working with the IMF, and we have a similarly experienced Treasury Secretary. We have appointed, he's the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance. Together with that, we have some internationally recognized Sri Lankan professionals who are top economists, including Professor Shanti Devarajan and Dr. Ananda Kumarasamy. So yes, with all their expertise, we are looking at putting up a decent case for us, which will preserve the Sri Lankan economy, preserve its institution, and form the base for the next pace of growth.
What sort of policy plans, reforms are you willing to present to the IMF here when it comes to any kind of negotiations on a bailout?
Yeah, basically we are looking at right now, we need immediate emergency funding to get the Sri Lanka back on track in terms of its fuel bill, in terms of its cooking oil gas bill, and also essential items. So because first of all, we need to look after the community and the country and the population. That's number one. Number two is debt restructuring. We have already started. We have floated our RFPs, both for financial advisor and the legal advisor. Hopefully, we will finalize quickly and do it in a very professional and transparent manner so that we can win back the confidence of the money market internationally, so that there is down the line hope and also access to the money market. Thirdly, we are looking at bridging finance in terms of getting our economy kickstart. And fourthly, of course, fiscal reforms. We have started some of those already. For example, we have already floated the rupee. We have already kind of matched the fuel bill in terms of the world prices, and we have almost freezed new recruitment to the government sector. Going forward, we might have to have a look at the new policy framework and also fiscal policies in terms of tax revival in order to improve the revenue to the Sri Lankan tax authorities. So those are the few areas, but we don't want to upset our real economic growth indicators such as tourism, industries, garments, and things like that. So our aim is and our challenge is to get the economy going.
Mr. Finance Minister, David here. How much money exactly are you asking for from the IMF, if I could ask that question?
Yeah, it's not exactly. We are in the final stages of working out with it. But if you ask me, we probably may need 3 to 4 billion new cash injections from external sources for the rest of the year. Now that the burden of debt repayment is out of our equation, probably to support the balance of payment crisis and also to have those continuous supply of fuel in order to prevent further electricity cuts so that our industries are not affected. So we are looking at 3 to 4 billion. If you look at from outside, we also need a social protection net in order to look after the poorest and poor who had been hit by high inflation.
3 to 4 billion. Could you just clarify, is that total from all external sources, potential external sources? And as a follow-up to that, you are going through some discussions with the Chinese as well for 2.5 billion, if I'm not mistaken. If you could give us an update too on those discussions with Beijing.
We have just started. We have been discussing with them for a long period of time. We are very confident that Chinese will look at very positively. China had a long-standing relationship with us, so I'm not going to give much of a detail on that. They're still in the negotiation stages, and India had been very, very helpful for us, our neighbor, a friend, for a long-standing friend, and they have categorically stated that they will bail out us until that we can stand on our own. So hopefully with Indian, Chinese, and probably IMF, World Bank, ADB, we have had very good initial discussions. With all of them, I am confident that we can pull through. Of course, there can be very difficult times going forward for the next 6 to 9 months or a year. And then we all know without pain, there is no gain. So we understand that these times are going to be very, very difficult going forward.
Minister, you've been on the job for a week now. You've already tendered your resignation, which was rejected by the president, of course. How stable is the government right now? And what sort of assurances are you going to have to give it to the IMF for them to believe that the Rajapaksa's are going to be remaining in power in a month from now?
No, whether it's not about Rajapaksa, so it's about the ruling party or the other party. Ruling party has the numbers in Sri Lanka. Right now, our interest is to protect the country and its financial institution. I think the ruling party has the majority, and that is why nobody is taking over when we offer to them either. So therefore, we are confident of showing our majority. Even otherwise, one good thing about Sri Lanka is across the board, ruling party and the potential parties who could replace us, almost all the lawmakers, except for very few, anyway in favor of going to the IMF. So even in case of a national government or the extreme unlikely case of the opposition forming a government, still no one is saying that not to go to the IMF. The problem here is why you didn't go to IMF for such a long period of time. So other than that, no one is saying that not to go to IMF. So that probably IMF will know that, and they have already consulted the opposition lawmakers and the opposition leaders and everyone of them. So in that sense, there is policy certainty as far as IMF is concerned, and engaging with the international community is concerned. And we have very categorically stated across the board that we will honor our debt. What we are asking is the commitment is there, the desire is there, but we don't have the funds to immediately disperse. Give us a little bit of time, like many others have done in the past. But the commitment remains that we will pay, and we will pay every dollar what we have borrowed. We will stand by the international community who have come to us and to our rescue during a very difficult time in the past. So it's our duty to see that we pay everything, and we have never defaulted prior to this. This is the first time in the history of 70 years we have been defaulting, but that doesn't mean the technical default in that sense that we don't have the desire, right, and we have the desire to pay that back.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that, Mr. Finance Minister. Do you have a target of when you can resume those payments? And since you also mentioned that the goal is to pay every single cent, is that absolute value, or are you willing to pay interest on top of that because of the delay?
No, we need to look at that, all those things. These are too early days. We just announced the moratorium 2 days ago. So we're in the process of appointing our financial advisors as well as our legal advisors. We will sit down, we'll negotiate, we'll get the advice from the multilateral agencies and our advisors who have been advising us on the debt restructuring. President has appointed a 3-member high-powered committee to advise on the restructuring. So we'll take all those advices on the board. We will study the other case studies from various parts of the world and take the right decision, which is fair by the Sri Lankan people and the international community and the investors who have had faith on us. So it will be a very transparent, rational, and reasonable process. But of course, if you have been part of our prosperity and made money out of it, when we are not doing well, you need to take some sort of share of a haircut on that. That is for sure. And I mean, that's going to be a long, protracted discussion. As we understand that, we are willing to do that. We are willing to engage everyone, and hopefully we will come out win-win for both investors and the public of Sri Lanka.
Minister, is there much political will now from the government to bail out companies that are close to a default? I think of Sri Lankan Airlines as one example. And is there enough money to bail out such companies?
Well, that's one of the key decisions we need to take going forward. We call it in Sri Lanka as SOEs, that is state-owned enterprises. So this has been traditionally draining our national coffers and the treasury. So we need to look at it case by case, what could be salvaged, what could be going forward make money. There's no point of try to salvage that and pumping from the national coffers, and ultimately the taxpayer pays for it. So I cannot, as of now, give a clear answer to each and every one of those, but there either desire on our part. I will put forward proposals to the cabinet once the full cabinet is appointed one of these days, how the way forward of it, and I'm looking forward to work with international advisors and people who have experience in other countries and other parts of the world in terms of privatizing or otherwise restructuring those state-owned enterprises which have been making heavy losses, putting undue pressure on our banking system as well as our national treasury.
And Minister, I have to ask you a logistical question. When will talks with IMF begin? Where, and are you planning a trip to DC soon?
Yes, we are in the process of going there. Hopefully on the 18th onwards, we have set up several rounds of discussions with the IMF, with the technical committee, technical consultations, then with the World Bank, with the ADB, with our bilateral partners, including the United States Treasury officials, similarly with our bilateral partners in most of the countries. Mostly our loans are from India, China, and Japan. So hopefully we will try to meet all of them. So generally those discussions will be there for about 5 to 6 days. So I'm hoping to be there in Washington on the 18th with my delegation, which includes Governor of the Central Bank and the Secretary to the Treasury with the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance. So this delegation will be there sitting and discussing with them for about a week or so. So then we will have some sort of an idea as to how the future looks for us in terms of their support and bridging finance.
I'm just marking my calendar 5 to 6 days after 18th. So let's say April 25th. Realistically, when can you receive the money in the event those talks are successful?
We are looking at 2 stages. One is the immediately relief funding. So we are trying to tap that. So that probably is a week from there onwards, some sort of support. That's my expectation, particularly from the World Bank and the ADB and the others. But bridging finance, you know better than us, will take a little bit of time. So the idea is to expedite that process. But I can't really give you a timeline right now. Our expectation and our request and our appeal to them is to release it as soon as possible, because we don't want to damage our industries in terms of tourism, the garment industry, our crops, export crops such as tea, rubber, and coconut, and our fisheries industry and IT industry. All those things have to be back on track in order to pay the loans. We are not in an illusion saying that going to IMF will solve our problem. We understand our problem will be solved by the real growth on the ground in our industries. So in order to do that, we need and we owe our people that continuous supply of fuel, continuous supply of electricity, so that they can do their job. So our first appeal would be that support us to get on track, so that they could do their job.